Hi, I'm Matthew Lapp, host of Matthew Lapp Train Guy segment show. Also today in this segment, I'm at the Midwest Central Railroad and Midwest Electric Railway and Midwest Old Threshers in McMillan Park in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, and continuing episode 31 with part 2. What you see right behind me is Denver and Rio Grande 6206. Denver and Rio Grande 6206 was built by American Car and Foundry in St. Charles, Missouri in 1918 and is a narrow gauge flat car. Denver and Rio Grande 6206 was used on freight trains in the past for the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad and hauled loads that a flat car like this one may have hauled in the past. Also, Denver and Rio Grande 6206 then later came to be part of Midwest Central Railroad in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, like in the 1970s or 1980s, and is one of the numerous of flat cars on the Midwest Central Railroad today. It used to have items like parts set on top and one time and even huge shop equipment, and then before the 2017 reunion it was rebuilt as a riding car, and also it can even be seen being hauled on the train on the Midwest Central Railroad in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, and people riding on board it as well. What you see right behind me is Westside Lumber Company 11. Westside Lumber Company 11 was built by Ford and Westside Lumber Company in 1930 and is a Model A Ford Fireman truck. Westside Lumber Company 11 was also used on the Westside Lumber Company whenever it was inspecting tracks mostly, and was used for hauling crews on board. Also, Westside Lumber Company 11 then came to be part of Midwest Central Railroad in Mount Pleasant, Iowa in 1966 when the Shay was purchased, and can be often seen running and trailing behind trains along with the Model T. They're known as the toys on the rails, but are still running and even often giving visitors rides or just trailing behind the trains. Also, 2 weeks before the 2017 reunion, it was repainted to being black because that was the color it was when delivered to the Westside Lumber Company, till it was later repainted yellow and bought by the Midwest Central Railroad in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, and also there used to be a window on the back and then got removed, and the wall was put in the spot as well. What you see right behind me is Denver and Rio Grande 5713. Denver and Rio Grande 5713 was built by American Car and Foundry in St. Charles, Missouri in 1904 and is a stock car. This car once hauled cattle from farms to whatever destination in the past on the Denver and Rio Grande Railroad for many years. Then later on the car was retired and was part of the Georgetown Loop and converted to being used as a riding car, and was carried on the Georgetown Loop Railroad on trains as well. As well as that, it was lettered Georgetown, Breckenridge, and Leadville, but abbreviated. Then in 2004, it was then moved to the Colorado Railroad Museum in Golden, Colorado. Then, in summer of 2015, the car came to be part of Midwest Central Railroad in Mount Pleasant, Iowa. It was still how it was till 2020 and was reunited with its Denver and Rio Grande abbreviation. Today, it is also used on train sets whenever trains are operating as well. What you see right behind me is the water tower. The water tower is an authentic steam-era water tower that came from the Missouri Short Line Railroad, Bavarian Southern Railroad. This water tower was added by 1964 to fill up the locomotives and needed as much 4,000 gallons at each filling. Also, this water tower had to be rebuilt because of a leaking problem. It is now part of the narrow gauge in McMillan Park where the reunion grounds are. Probably back in 1985, the Midwest Central Railroad rebuilt this water tower and was rebuilt when the Midwest Central originally got it, and it has a metal tank inside it, and originally had the wood and tank out there and would leak a lot then and build metal linear tank that sat inside used for that, and the water tower used to sit on the east side of the south station. Then the foundation underneath it got rotted and wood poles held it up and was about to fall over, and it was taken down and reworked everything and gotten everything worked properly and rebuilt a new steel underframe for it, then set it up at the North Station. Also, today the water tower can be seen by the North Station and can be seen used for filling water into the steam engines whenever Midwest Central Railroad has their steam engines running. What you see right behind me is the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Hillsboro Depot. The Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Hillsboro Depot was built in 1880 and was originally located in Hillsboro, Iowa. This depot was originally used by the Fort Madison and Northwestern Narrow Gauge Railroad for many years, and also it was used for passengers to buy a ticket and even sit in the waiting room while waiting for a train as well. Then, in 1901, the Fort Madison and Northwestern was acquired by the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad, and the depot was still used in passenger service right into the early 1950s. Also, the tracks that used to go through Hillsboro were removed. Then, in the late 1950s, it was moved to Mount Pleasant, Iowa, and carefully moved by truck and put in this spot on the north end of the Midwest Old Thresher grounds. And also today it acts as the North Station on the Midwest Central Railroad as well. Also, the building was furnished with a waiting room, ticket office, and freight room. The depot didn't look like the way you're seeing it today, because what I mean is on the east side of this structure had nothing when it was located in Hillsboro, Iowa. And then after it came to Mount Pleasant, it was added with a platform and later a gutter which extended the roof where people could wait to board the train when it's like a rainy day to stay dry, or a hot day to have some shade as well, and the area features some benches. After it was put in this spot, it was painted yellow till later it was repainted red, which is its present color as well. Also, the freight room used to be a gift shop till the 2017 reunion, and nowadays it's like used as a storage room as well. Right here is a Velocipede, which the person would sit on this seat, pull this back, and it would move down the tracks. This was used for inspection, but that was what was wrong with having three wheels to run on tracks. But nowadays, those days are over. But sometimes I think this is often brought outside. But I think it just stays right here, though. This is a Handcar that's right here, and also this was bought from the auction in South Carolina or Georgia with the 2 steam engines, as well as the other maintenance equipment. And this one came off the Argent, like I said, and it was bought in 1960 for Midwest Central. And also sometimes when it's here, it can even be put on the tracks, and even the people like to do handcar races with it. However, it's the only handcar here. It was repainted in 2020. as it was looking dark paintwork. So here it is today. It says it was built by Fairbanks Moores in Chicago. Right here's a flatbed that once carried supplies for the Argent Lumber Company. It was acquired the same time 6 and 2 were acquired from the auction, and today it's on Midwest Central Railroad, used to carry like ballast and tools and such. And yeah, here it is preserved today. It wasn't like this when it got here. I think it was yellow at one point, and then about 2019 or 2018 it was painted to look like this, the way you're seeing it. Okay, you could see right here is a Fairmount Speeder that came off the Argent Lumber Company. Sometimes this runs on the Midwest Central Railroad, and today it is here today after being used at Argent in South Carolina. And when it was retired, it was bought at the auction with the 2 and the 6 in 1960. And here it is today at its happy home. What you see right behind me is Fredrick Snare Corp 2. Fredrick Snare Corp 2 was built by Vulcan Iron Works in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania in 1935 and is the 4175th diesel locomotive built by that factory and is a gas switcher type diesel locomotive. This locomotive is known as the Squirt and was originally owned by the Fredrick Snare Corp in Grafton, West Virginia, and was used to move rolling stock around at the facility. Then later on, the locomotive was retired and then was sold to Midwest Central Railroad in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, and when it arrived in Mount Pleasant, it was repainted yellow and numbered as Midwest Central Railroad 101, and for many years, it had been used as a yard goat on the railroad. Then in 2016 it was repainted to black, and also it is even used for shunting equipment around as well. Also, it is one of 2 surviving gas switchers from the Fredrick Snare Corp, and number 5 is at the Yosemite Mountain Sugar Pine Railroad in Fish Camp, California, and number 2 can be found here at the Midwest Central Railroad in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, where it is today. What you see right behind me is Carbon Limestone Company D9. Carbon Limestone D9 was built by Plymouth Locomotive Works in Plymouth, Ohio in 1956 and is the 5902nd diesel locomotive built by that factory and is a diesel hydraulic switcher. This engine has a Cummins diesel power. This locomotive operated at the Carbon Limestone Company in Ohio. Originally, the locomotive operated on 38-inch gauge track when working at the Carbon Limestone Company. Then, Service Machine Equipment purchased Carbon Limestone's operation in 1983, and due to their unfavorable opinion on the railroads, the fleet of diesels were left largely abandoned. Then the locomotive along with its sister 14 was found by Midwest Central Railroad volunteers in the early 1990s and were both purchased, and both of them were taken over to Mount Pleasant, Iowa, and the locomotive was yellow when it was abandoned and was carried over to Mount Pleasant, Iowa. It was re-gauged to 36-inch gauge at the Midwest Central Railroad shop in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, before entering service on the railroad. In 2009, the Midwest Central Railroad volunteers began performing restoration to get it rolling again. It had to be repainted, and this is its original paintwork on it. It even had its parts worked on as well. In 2021, the engine started rolling under its own power just in time for the Midwest Old Threshers reunion. Today, the engine is also used basically for shunting and sometimes hauling the trains around McMillan Park in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, and operates today as well, just like its sister. What you see right behind me is Midwest Central Railroad 301. Midwest Central Railroad 301 is one of the coaches on Midwest Central Railroad constructed from freight cars from various railroads, including the Southern Pacific, East Broad Top, and the Westside Lumber Company, and constructed at the Midwest Central Railroad shops using Southern Pacific flat cars as a foundation. Also, Midwest Central Railroad 301 is often used as one of the coaches used on train sets on Midwest Central Railroad whenever the Midwest Central Railroad has trains running in McMillan Park in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, and also it is named Mount Pleasant, and it used to be painted green, and the sideboards under the windows saying Mount Pleasant has likely been put in storage or maybe thrown away. And also in 2016, the coach had to take a year off from being used at the Thresher reunion that year because of a repaint and restoration, and it got repainted maroon, and it then went back into service afterwards. But while it was still being repainted, it was being used after the reunion of 2016. Also, as the car was repainted, the handbars even got repainted white, and today this car operates on Midwest Central Railroad whenever the train is running as well. What you see right behind me is Westside Lumber Company 9. Westside Lumber Company 9 was built by Lima Locomotive Works in Lima, Ohio in 1923 and is the 3199th steam locomotive built by that factory and is a 3-truck shay type steam locomotive. Originally, it was built for the Hetch Hetchy and Yosemite Valley Railway as Hetch Hetchy and Yosemite Valley 9. In 1925, it then became Pickering Lumber Company 9. Then in 1934, it was then used on the Westside Lumber Company as Westside Lumber Company 9. In 1958, it was used by the Pickering Lumber Corp, but it was still lettered as Westside Lumber Company 9. Also, the locomotive was used as a logging locomotive for many years. Then, when the logging railroad closed, Westside Lumber Company 9 and other locomotives that worked the Westside Lumber Company were retired and sat idle, and the engine was sold to fiberboard paper in 1965, where it was kept for a while. Then, in 1966, the shay was sold to Midwest Central Railroad in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, and was carried to Mount Pleasant by flat car on a freight train and then carried to the Thresher Park by truck. Westside Lumber Company 9 has operated on Midwest Central Railroad in Mount Pleasant, Iowa since then. In 1998, some extensive work took place on Westside Lumber Company 9. In 2011, the Georgetown Loop Railroad took possession of the Midwest Central Railroad shay Westside Lumber Company 9, and it arrived there that year. And in 2012, the Midwest Central Railroad took possession of the Kahului Railroad Prairie 12, and in 2011, the lease was formed by Midwest Central Railroad and Georgetown Loop Railroad to swap the two locomotives. And Westside Lumber Company 9 has been operating on the Georgetown Loop Railroad tracks between Silver Plume and Georgetown starting in 2012 and has been used for exciting most of the rail fans on the Georgetown Loop Railroad in Colorado like it did on the Midwest Central Railroad in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, before it left Mount Pleasant, and has been operating on the Georgetown Loop Railroad till 2018 and was stored at the Georgetown Loop and awaited to be moved back, and the lease with the two locomotives expired. Westside Lumber Company 9 returned to McMillan Park in Mount Pleasant, Iowa in 2019 and operated at the 2019 Old Threshers reunion, and then before rolling again, it had driveline work to be done on it, and once again back in service on the Midwest Central Railroad. Also, Westside Lumber Company 9 is one of 7 remaining Westside Lumber Company shays surviving today, and they're all 3-truck shays, and 9 is also used on the Midwest Central Railroad in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, and even is used operating on the tracks today as well. What you see right behind me is the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Yarmouth Depot. The Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Yarmouth Depot was built likely somewhere in the 1800s or early 1900s and originally was in Yarmouth, Iowa. This depot was once used for passenger service on the Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy Railroad many years ago. The original structure was much larger, and not only that, the living quarters was for the rail agent and his family. The line it served was the Burlington and Washington branch of the railroad. In 1940, the depot was reduced to its present size by the railroad. Then later, the depot was retired and the tracks that used to go through Yarmouth were removed. Then in 1959, it was moved to the Midwest Old Threshers Park in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, and was originally used as the trolley ticket office and gift shop. Also today, the building is currently used for storage and acts as the main trolley station on the Midwest Electric Railway as well. What you see right behind me is Northern Pacific 1781. Northern Pacific 1781 was built by the Northern Pacific Railroad in 1923 and is a wooden caboose. It was used on the back of freight trains many years ago as the train crew's office, and also is one of the many wooden Northern Pacific cabooses built as well. Then, when the Northern Pacific merged to form the Burlington Northern Railroad, it was renumbered as Burlington Northern 10975 and painted in the Burlington Northern's green and white paint scheme. Then later on, it was retired and in 1982 was bought by a private individual and was later moved to the Mid-Continent Railway Museum in North Freedom, Wisconsin, and used as a bunk facility there. Then, in 2019, it was bought by a member of the Midwest Central Railroad and was moved to this spot at the Midwest Old Threshers grounds in Mount Pleasant, Iowa. Today, it sits adjacent to the Midwest Electric Railway trolley barn on the grounds as well. What you see right behind me is Iowa Interstate 9703. Iowa Interstate 9703 was built around like the 1900s and is a hopper car. This car was used on the Iowa Interstate Railroad for many years and used to haul different types of cargo such as like rocks, coal, gravel, rubble, and many different types of cargo it may have hauled many years ago and being used on mixed traffic trains or on a train with hopper cars. Then in 2016, it came to Midwest Electric Railway in McMillan Park in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, and in 2017, it had been repainted with the Iowa Interstate stripe as well, and also it is likely used as a ballast car for the Midwest Electric Railway as well. What you see right behind me is Union Electric 1100. Union Electric 1100 was built by American Car Company in Canton, Ohio, and is a flat motor trolley. Originally, this car was used for the Mississippi River Power Company in Keokuk, Iowa, as Mississippi River Power Company 1100 and used on the Keokuk Dam across the Mississippi River and served the hydroelectric generating station. Also, the car has a submarine-like appearance because the operator's cab of this work motor is raised above the deck to allow long length of the deck. After an ice storm heavily damaged the overhead electric wire of the railway Emerson, Missouri, which is the Union Electric Company, decided to replace the flat motor with a diesel. In 2002, it was then donated to Midwest Electric Railway in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, and used likely for track inspections mostly as well. Also, the cab was painted orange for a while till 2016 it was repainted gray. Today, this locomotive can be seen preserved here at Midwest Old Threshers on the Midwest Electric Railway in Mount Pleasant, Iowa, where it is today. What you see right behind me is Massachusetts Bay Transit Authority 3279. Massachusetts Bay Transit Authority 3279 was built by the Boston Elevated Railway in Boston, Massachusetts in 1912 and is a line car. This car was used for the Boston Elevated Railway in the Boston area. Also, the car was originally a dark color whenever it worked in Massachusetts and later repainted yellow, and it was used to keep the overhead electric wires that the trolley gets their power from in good working order, and also it's nicknamed as Cheese Box because it comes from the resemblance to popular cheese products. In 1947, it was then used on the Boston Metropolitan Transit Authority and still having the original number. In 1964, it worked for the Massachusetts Bay Transit Authority. Then, in 1995, it was soon retired and was donated to the Midwest Electric Railway in Mount Pleasant, Iowa by the Massachusetts Bay Transit Authority, and also it is likely used for track work, most likely, and preserved at the Midwest Old Threshers grounds on Midwest Electric Railway today. Okay, you can see right here is a speeder used by Midwest Electric Railway. It is clearly unknown where it would have been used, probably by Chicago, Burlington, and Quincy, but who the heck knows? As my guess, it could have been. But here it is today. It looks like a Fairmount speeder to me. Okay, you can see right here's the flatbed, one of the flatbeds. This is the yellow one that they use here to carry spikes and such, and tools even to maintain the track. And here it is today at the Midwest Electric Railway. Okay, here is two more that you see behind me, and they look a bit different than the one you just saw, and yeah, they're likely used as well. Well, I hope you all enjoyed learning about trains with me today in Matthew Lapp Train Guy segment show. Also, I hope to see you all again in the next segment, and if you didn't subscribe to my channel yet, the subscribe button is just down below, and yeah, please subscribe, it's free to do so. And if you didn't give my Facebook page a like yet, here's where you can find it. So be sure to hit that like button for me. And if you didn't follow the Instagram page yet, here's where you can find it as well. And please be sure to hit that follow button as well. So this is Matthew Lapp, host of Matthew Lapp Train Guy segment show, signing out. Until next time, all aboard!